force my eyes open. At some point, my surroundings had transformed. A shattered town, crumbling to the ground, all around me. Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Ryan Sierra. Welcome back. We're playing Fallstreak. This is part 9, and oh my goodness, everything has gone to hell in a handbasket. And, oh, I have this church. This is in my town. Um, uh, uh-oh. Daddy! Daddy! A familiar voice calls out. Kalia! She had fallen a short distance away. A giant mass of burning wood and stone was pinning her arms down. Kalia! Horrified, I dash over to her. Daddy! Her face contorts in tear-stained agony. It hurts! Hold on, Kalia! So, I'm trying to do this thing where I'm trying to make Kalia sound normal, when she's, like, younger. Because I gave her the sort of chain-smoky voice, shonen anime protagonist voice I did, in the beginning because she's now, obviously, like, post-victim of, like, the fire, right? So it must have messed up her throat and lungs. But here, that hasn't quite happened yet, so I'm trying to do a steady, gradual incline. So, you know, I hope you like that excuse, directors. I know theater people love it when auditioners give excuses. In a panicked frenzy, I grab at the mass, pinning her down. A hissing sound pierces the air as my flesh bubbles from touching the rainbow flames. Gah! Kalia screams as the twisted mass shifts weight over her pinned arms. It hurts! It hurts! Ah! I push until I can no longer feel my arms, but it doesn't budge an inch. Damn it! Tormented by Kalia's cries, I howl in frustration. Before long, my singed arms fall limply to my sides. I drop to my knees. Dizzy-headed from the smoke, Kalia's feeble voice barely registers in my murky consciousness. At this rate, Kalia was going to die. No. I won't accept a fate like that. Pulling myself together, I scan my surroundings. My eyes dart along the ground, locking onto a suitable object. A blackened shard of metal with a saw-like edge. I feel my sanity leave me as I grab it with trembling hands and lift it over Kalia's trapped arms. Her heart-wrenching cries fill the air as I press the metal's jagged edge into her arm. But I don't stop. Howling and crying like a demon possessed, I saw vigorously, feeding vivid red to the roaring fire. Before long, I hit bone. But we didn't have time to saw through it, you see. Pouring strength into my frame, I grab what remains of her arm. I twist and whip up. With a sickening snap, the bone breaks. The heat of encroaching flames, the sound of collapsing buildings. Driven by those menacing sensations, I hastily start cutting into her other arm. Kalia had stopped screaming at this point. I could tell from her faint, ragged breathing and weakly shut eyes that she was at her limit, though. We were out of time. Praying it was shut. Praying it was enough. I grabbed Kalia with both arms. Then, planting my feet, I grit my teeth and pull with all my might. The grotesque sound of meat tearing culminates with a gut-wrenching pop as Kalia's joints give and she separates from her trapped lower arms. Stumbling backwards, I pivot and take off with her in tow, weaving through the burning wreckages that block our path. Time and space seem to blur as I run. But eventually we make it to a safe location. Oh wait, no, it's still him. Okay. Sorry! Thought I was transitioning over to, back to his wife, Amenae. Gasping for breath, I lower Kalia's limp figure to the ground and examine her arm stumps. It seemed the fire had cauterized most of her injury. It had left strangely patterned burn marks in the process, though. In an attempt to fashion makeshift bandages, I try and tear several strips of fabric from my shirt, only to discover that my fingers are too damaged to perform the movements. My hands were covered in the strange patterns as well. Kalia. As the tension leaks from my body, the pain begins to resurface. I lift my head to look up at Sakatrin's burning sky. That's when I notice. All around me, screams and groans were filling the air, creating a din of unending despair. Screams and groans were filling the air, creating a din of unending despair. Screams and groans were filling the air, creating a din of unending despair. One day had passed since I patched up Kalia and Atun. Between Kalia's amputated arms and the severe burns on Atun's hands, it wasn't difficult to deduce what had happened. At my side, Triss peeks over to where Kalia is resting. He looks back and forth between Kalia's absent arms and his own intact ones. A bead of sweat rolls down Atun's face as he writhes in pain. It's spreading again. It's spreading again. A bizarre phenomenon plays out before me. Without warning, the marked areas on Atun's hands begin to glow. When the light subsides, I observe that the burn patterns have crept up his arms. The same thing was happening to Kalia's burns as well. It seemed the wounds inflicted by the unusual fire were harmful even after their initial infliction. It was like a disease, or a curse. I had to find a way to treat it before it did any more damage. Watch over Daddy and Kalia, Triss. Food, water, and medical supplies had already been set down in arm's reach of the bed. Don't leave, and don't let anyone in. Retreating into my room, I make preparations to set off. A locked drawer. For years I had only ever touched it to maintain its contents. My heart beats not. After inspecting them by one, I tighten a holster of throwing knives around my leg. As I do, my eyes drift over to the proof of my existence, a razor-sharp butcher knife that curved to a tapered point. Breath does not come from my mouth. The scratches and chips that marred it were proof I had succeeded in carving a path to this day. Even after all these years, it still felt natural in my hand, as if it were but an extension of my body. My feet do not tread upon this earth, for I am colorless. The weight of steel was one of the only absolute truths in life. Sincere and free of lies, it was that quality of purity that enabled it to spill blood with ease. The past was never something I could escape, was it? Concealing the knife on my person, I lock the door behind me as I leave. Man, this guy's fingers playing the piano, they must be aching. Also, look at that building. I know that kind of looks like words, doesn't it? Bruh, am I stupid, or is this like Japanese letters? It looks like some kind of lettering or something. In contrast to yesterday's chaos, a somber silence had laid claim to the hazy morning air. The situation had changed since yesterday. The church steeple is completely gone. At some point, the inextinguishable fire had dissipated all at once, ending just as abruptly as it had begun. Only the smoldering remains it left behind could be seen now. I'll check up on Mallory first. Though it takes longer than usual, I get to the Baccia household with all the debris. I arrive without complication. While their house appeared to be untouched, many of their neighbors had been less fortunate. I find Mallory in the streets kneeling over a victim she seemed to have pulled from the rubble. Mallory. Though I call out to her, she doesn't respond. It is only when I place a hand on her shoulder that she turns to face me. Amy. Glazed hollow eyes that gazed through what they were supposed to focus on. Every person I had passed on the way had looked the same. The fire. Idone. Burn marks. Sakatrin. Dia. Where is Idone? Did he survive? I pull her together by giving her something specific to focus on. But Mallory... Yeah. I pull her together by reminding her of her dead husband. One of his colleagues came by, and... I don't know what to tell the children. There's no need to let them know. Worry about that later. How are the children's conditions? They're inside. Alouette hurt her leg, but other than that, she's okay. Lynette and Dia, though... I'll show you after I finish treating this man. Though her hands were trembling, she doesn't stop bandaging the wounded man before her. It was like a desperate attempt to remain moving, as if she'd collapse under the pressure if she stopped. It was a way of averting one's eyes from reality. Forget it. Give up on him. If you insist on trying to help, conserve your energy for someone who has a chance of making it. A ragged avulsion splitting the femoral, limbs entangled at impossible angles, and copious amounts of blood. It was clear from a glance the man was already at death's door. Mallory hunches over and closes her eyes as her body shivers to a halt. For a moment I worry she'll restart her mindless act. You're right. But then she rises to her feet, determination filling her eyes. Oh, God! Laid out on the bed were Lynette and Dia, their bodies disheveled and bandaged, their breaths short and ragged. At the other end of the room, Alouette was sitting against the wall in a state of stunned silence. Her leg was injured and she didn't look capable of moving, but fortunately she didn't appear to be burned anywhere. Have you noticed, Mallory? Yeah. Their burns won't stop spreading. The rainbow fire did this to them. Rainbow fire. Their burns were even more extensive than Kalia and Atun's. Several parts of Dia's back and face seem afflicted, while burn marks were scattered over almost a third of Lynette's body. I'll find a way to save them. Mallory's eyes widened at my declaration. How? Information is the first thing we need. I'm going to scope out Amenae. If anyone knows anything about the Rainbow Fire, it's the ULs. Amy, are you sure? Also, yes, random German name right there. I won't fail. I won't fail. Kalia and Atun are in the same situation after all. That's not what I mean. You're always like this. You always try to bear everything by yourself. It worries me. I just want you to know that you have allies. Lean on me. Let me help. No, you shouldn't come. It might turn dangerous and you'll only slow me down. Amy, you can help by stocking up on supplies. I also left Atun and the twins at home. I don't know how long I'll be gone, so I want you to check up on them. It still looked like she had something to say, though. I want you to believe in me, Mallory. Trust me. I clasp her hands. Okay. Just be careful, alright? Promise me you won't do anything too reckless? I promise. The two of us entwine pinkies like in the old days. We'll get through this, okay? Yeah. I'll be off then. As I turn to leave, my eyes catch on Alouette standing in the corner of the room. Though she said nothing, her face spoke for itself. It was as if she were lost in a sea of uncertainty. Amenae, a state-of-the-art hospital that had been renovated with the latest of UL technology. For many in Sakatrin, it stood as a symbol of hope. It had served as the forefront of the Verloren Master's successful campaign. Verloren Master's successful campaign. I'm gonna succinctly shit myself. As expected, scores of people had already gathered in front of the main entrance. I read that way too fast. Slowing my pace, I drift through the crowd, catching bits of conversation as I pass by. Heard? Seems they already knew a way to treat the burns. Something similar happened back in their homeland, calling it the Fire of Collapse. I know, but why did it just blow out the other day? Have about 20 people entered through the... Come back yet? Wow, interesting. So this is... See, this is... Okay. So... Oh, God. Okay. So I'm going to say this, okay? Bit of lore for the game. So what happens... Oh, God, this poor fucking Dr. Seuss lamppost over here. So, what happened? Remember way back when Belisaria was telling the kids the tale of that girl who just got torn up because her tears made, like, the land, like, really fertile? And thusly she was kind of made a scapegoat because then the people got mad at her and called her a witch when, like, it wasn't going right for them. So basically what's going to happen here, I'm not going to say who gets it, but one of our current people in this current narrative from Amenae and Atun, and everyone else involved, one of them is gonna get it and get turned into a scapegoat as well for, like, the sake of, like, the town. Also, wait, the church is back? Whoa, that was fast. No, but the thing is I was thinking when I was playing this game, like, this clearly seems like some kind of attack, right? Like, this clearly seems like some kind of, like, terrorist front from some, like, rivaling, enemy, like, country or something. Um, but I thought to myself, considering this game was pushing the scapegoat narrative, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't think like that. Maybe it just was a natural disaster. Um, Maybe in a parallel Earth, the sky just literally rains down rainbow hellfire on people every so often, and that's like the Earth that this game takes place in. Because, right? Because thinking like trying to fit a human cause to it, it seemed like the game didn't want me to do that. But apparently a cure already existed, and the people who took over this country are talking about how the refugees who took over this country of Sakhatrin are talking about how they experienced it in their homeland too, which makes me wonder, do you think like maybe someone from their homeland, like a rival faction in their homeland, kind of brought it over here? Maybe they brought it with them? But see, I feel like I shouldn't think like that, right? Why can't I go in? My little boy is in there. We've already made this clear to you. Entry is prohibited to all but patients and medical personnel. Please, I just want to know if he's doing all right. Wait, is that them? Look, they're coming out! The crowd stirs as a column of people emerges from the hospital. All of them were scarred with the etchings unique to the rainbow fire. However, their burns look different, don't they? They're really cured! Something wasn't right, though. Of the 20 that had supposedly gone in, only half had returned. What do you mean? Can't you just cure him like the rest? The mother from before was shouting frantically at a doctor accompanying the treated patients. Please understand, your son's injuries are very intensive in comparison. He is in critical condition, and as such, we need to continue monitoring. Why won't you listen to me? He's such a skittish boy. Waking up in a place surrounded he doesn't know, he'll be so scared. That's why I need to be there for him. I'm sorry, ma'am. Why are you apologizing? Just let me in! Let me see him! The mother pushes past the doctor and tries to enter the hospital, only to be held back by the officer from before. Stop right there! Let me go! My son is in there! Gah! The officer clutches at his wrist as the woman flails wildly under his grasp. She bit me! Unsheathing his sword, he slams his hilt into the woman's head and drives her to the ground. But even then, she doesn't stop trying to enter. How many times do I have to tell you before you get it through your head? You can't go in! Enraged, the officer begins to kick and stomp the crawling woman mercilessly. Let me see him! Let me see him! The woman breaks into sobs as she tries to shield herself from the crushing blows. Nell! Nell! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! The officer brings his foot down hard, silencing her as she tries to call it a name. Stop it! With an angry growl, the officer's partner grabs him by the collar and shoves him away. But the woman had already been rendered motionless in the dirt. Nice! Police brutality, always a good element to any story. /S. /S. For the remainder of the day, I continued to observe the hospital's activities. However, the same trend only continues to persist. 30 people would enter, but only 14 would exit. 40 would go in, but only 20 would return. Like clockwork, the cycle repeats, again and again. Oh shit, bro, it's like the devil's arithmetic! After passing the entrance checkpoint, our group gets cleared to enter. Several details stand out to me as we're led deep into the building. Though it sounded like there was significant activity in the distance, the area we were being led through was utterly empty. Even security detail was absent. It seemed the guards weren't authorized to enter this area. Moving around will still be difficult at this rate, though. After being brought to a large junction... After being brought to a large junction, individual nurses begin taking us one by one into separate rooms. The nurse assigned to me was wearing a surgical mask and had an average build. After leading me into a checkup room, she closes the door behind us. A raised stretcher, a counter with a faucet, and a closet. Perfect. Okay, ma'am, could you please remove the bandage on your arm and show me your burn? She begins preparing a syringe on the nearby counter. What's in the syringe? This is a mild relaxant meant to calm you down before the procedure. It'll be just a little. After finishing her preparations, she tries to turn around, but I don't let her. I grab her by the wrist and press down on her shoulder blade, pitting her against the counter.
What are you?
Twisting the syringe out of her hand, I wrap my arm around her neck and cut off her circulation. Maintaining the choke until she goes limp, I insert the tip of the syringe into one of her bulging blood vessels and press down on the plunger. Mild relaxant was an understatement. I had known from the beginning this sedative was intended to knock out the patient. After all, none of the mended victims outside had been able to describe the treatment process. They had all said they'd fallen asleep and woken up cured. After stripping the nurse of her uniform, I tie her up using some cravats I find in the closet and gag her using the bandage on my arm.
I'm sorry for that little pause. That was weird.
Bumpy, yo, look at this little part right here of the dialogue box. It's like Bumpy and shit. Oh yeah, baby. Then I place her in the closet in the recovery position, wash the soot from my arm, and don her uniform. Complete with mask and cap, it served as an excellent disguise. So far everything had gone on as planned, but from here on out I'll have to improvise. Bringing my ear to the door, I try to gauge the situation outside. It isn't until several minutes pass that a general bustle begins to pick up. Choosing that moment to act, I enter the hallway. Upon exiting, I find myself amidst a stream of nurses carrying stretchers of the deviant burn victims. Deviant burn victims? What, did they had too much sex? What does that mean? In addition to being rendered unconscious, the patients had been stripped naked. Oh, I guess they did! Exposing their injuries to plain view. I begin moving down the hall. Glancing into the rooms as I pass, I spot a lone nurse at the head of a stretcher. As if it were completely natural, I step in and grab the other end. 3, 2, 1. The nurse counts off before lifting in sync with me. My god, Amenae, you're so good at improv. Letting her take point, we join the flow of traffic outside.
This one's a really young one, isn't she?
Though it goes well initially, the nurse suddenly starts speaking to me. Yeah. I respond ambiguously as I look down at the patient on the stretcher. It was as the nurse said. The girl couldn't have been older than Kalia, yet she was missing a leg, the deviant burn having spread over nearly half her body. Oh, the burn is what's deviant. That makes sense, considering what it is.
I have a little girl just like her back home.
The nurse falls silent, her gaze locked straight ahead. I hope she isn't flagged. Flagged. A term that could only carry one meaning. It was as I thought. The hospital was triaging its patients. Wait, what does that mean? My eyes drift down to the girl despite myself. Perhaps, due to the nurse's influence, I can't help but see Kalia's image in the girl's light brown locks and weakly shut eyes. Everyone makes the same face when they're struggling to hold on to life with all they have. Though I want to avert my eyes, for some reason I feel compelled to look. After rounding several corners, we enter a large open area where we're directed to lay the stretchers down in a grid-like orientation. Taking my place among the line of nurses gathering on one end of the room, I watch on as a pair of important-looking people enter the area. You're certain there's no other way, Director? There's no doubt. It's identical to the 12th calamity that ravaged our homeland. 12th! Shit! A silver-haired woman with an air of authority was discussing something with the chief of the Socotroni Guard. Oh, so it's a lady. Director is lady. Remember that. We can't save more than half of the afflicted. There must be some kind of mistake. Surely there exists UL technology that can treat it. The deviant burn cannot be treated by medical science, not even amputation or debridement.